I think that the problem with your solution, you started off correctly, and everything looks good up until this point. What I'm wondering about is where the epsilon over 5 came from. I know that the limit is 5, but that's not what you want to pop into the equation there. What you want to do is, okay, so there's two things. One is, if you look on your professor's website, you will see on the 2012-2013 year that he taught the course that he has a very similar assignment with solutions posted, and it's listed under assignment 4. If you take a look at his solution for question 3, I think that that will make more sense to you in terms of what you're trying to do here. It's good that you got this far. You're really, really close, but what we want to do here is we want delta, you've assigned delta to be less than 1, and that's what we have to do here, is assign a value to delta just arbitrarily, so that we can deal with the fact that we have delta defined as epsilon over a variable, so it can't be dependent on a variable. So what you want to do from here is you want to set it up that x is going to be between 0, because delta has to be positive, and 1, because you've said that delta has to be at least smaller than 1. And so what we're looking to solve is actually x plus 2. And so if we add 2 to all of the elements of our equation here, all of the elements of our equation here, then we end up with x plus 2 being in between 2 and 3. Now, if we want to flip that, because what we're really dealing with is 1 over x plus 2, then what's going to happen is we can flip this, and all of our signs will change from less than to greater than. So I'll change those around to the opposite direction. Oops, sorry. Change this around to the opposite direction. And now you can see that we need to write it the other way around, so that x is going to be, x plus 2 is less than 1/2 and greater than 1/3, because 1/3 is smaller than 1/2, okay? So now we have parameters for the x plus 2 factor, and you've also said that delta has to be less than 1, and so we can now go back to this part of the equation, and we can say that if we know that 1 over x plus 2 has to be greater than 1/3 and less than 1/2, then we can solve for epsilon over x plus 2. So that this value is no greater than 1/2. And so in other words, we want epsilon over 2 there, okay? So because we put the parameters on and we don't know what they are going to choose for epsilon, then when we make our conclusions about what delta should be equal to, or what player B should choose, then we have to compare the value between epsilon and the value delta that you chose, which was the 1. And so we kind of have a range, and what we want to do is choose the smaller of the two, which is the minimum between these two guys. So whichever one of those turns out to be smaller based on what epsilon chooses, then delta is going to make sure that player B is going to make sure that they choose a delta that's within either epsilon over 2 or 1, whichever is smaller of player A's choice, and he will always win the game. And so that proves that this limit exists, and this one is definitely more tricky than the previous two questions.